2012, December the 10th, it was confirmed that I have second stage cancer. I'm supposed to check my breasts every time I bathe, but I took it for granted. I never thought I would have breast cancer.
So I think we can define the problem very well. What we can't define is the answer.
I think about 3 weeks after he started, he came to me and said, "You have a lot of advanced breast cancers." And he said that in many ways Singapore is similar to Sweden or to other developed countries because we have world-class healthcare. We have an emphasis on research, we have a fantastic education system. But the women with breast cancer come really late. You sort of expect that in many other countries, but it's sort of incongruent with the surroundings in Singapore. You know, spanking new hospital, fantastic facilities, extremely well-trained doctors.
There must have been, in some way, shape or form, that the woman knew that it was there.
Yeah.
She also knew that she had to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
But why didn't she come? So if you want to create a project where part of it is to raise funds, part of it is for research, part of it is to create awareness, you need something to get people's attention.
Now the long ride consists of two very poorly advised surgeons who are going to ride 2 motorcycles from Singapore to Sweden. Our objective is to visit cancer centers along the route, interview breast cancer patients, and to see what cultural aspects affect breast cancer risk. This very ill-advised route looks the easiest when it's on a map.
During our free time, we built this truck. There's a GPS tracking system. We can actually trace where the guys are going along the way.
It was a really bizarre feeling when the bike was packed and you headed to customs in Singapore. The beginning of Malaysia was rain.
Oh my word.
It's
the worst rain for the whole trip was in Malaysia.
It was so wet.
I was struck by just how big an undertaking there was. It was just so daunting. Everything would have to go right according to schedule.
The first visit in Malaysia was Mount Miriam in Penang. It's a not-for-profit hospital that it has been run successfully over a number of years for cancer patients.
And basically what we do is offer cancer management, which includes chemotherapy, radiation therapy.
Breast cancer will still remain one of the highest, the most common cancer. We probably get about 30 to 40% of our patients are probably breast cancer patients.
I suppose one of the challenges that we face is the fact that survival in Malaysia is so much worse than it is in other parts of the world.
In our institution, about 25 to 30% of our women actually present with stage 3 or stage 4 breast cancer. A lot of our understanding of breast cancer came from the Western setting, where a lot of research has been done. What we have found is not everything that has been found in the West may necessarily apply in the Asian setting.
To hear that I have a breast cancer is a very huge shock for me. I wanted to collapse.
Everybody has got different opinion, everybody said different things, and you're just so confused.
They don't want to talk about it, they don't want to know about it. They're just hiding themselves, you know, living in denial. And that is not good. Yeah, that's not good.
For us who work with breast cancer, we know that if it's just a lump, it's still a cancer, but it's only a lump, you can cure almost all of the women.
I had got used to women coming later. You know, it's just a part of and parcel of my daily work. But I think what Mike pointed out to us was that it doesn't have to be this way.
So we left Penang, bellies charged, mentally charged, enthusiastic about the trip. heading up for our first border crossing. I think for me, here I knew that, okay, we've actually gotten going. So you head up the north-south highway and you come into Thailand, and that was pretty smooth.
But I think the main trouble we had as we went up the highway towards Chiang Mai was heat. We got some bike trouble. I found that the Suzuki that I was riding wasn't terribly stable. The rear wheel felt wobbly.
Considering that we've taken 2 years to prepare for this, your wheel bearings held up for how long?
My wheel bearings held up for 7 days. And we took it to a Thai mechanic just south of Suratani. He had a rear bearing replaced.
I mean, the generosity of the Thai people is amazing. Some of the collaborators in Chiang Mai that Philip knew from before had managed to coincide our arrival with the opening of a women's center. And it's going to be a huge leap forward for the women in Chiang Mai.
I hope that more women will know about breast cancer awareness, because we know that some of the Asian women may be shy to come to see doctor, and some may be busy with their family and not come, or many may not have knowledge about breast cancer, the symptom or treatment.
Because of the traditional culture, they are different in the way of thinking.
แต่ความกลัวของเรานะมีแต่เวลาเรามาโรงพยาบาลจริงๆแล้วเนี่ยเรามาเจอผู้ที่เป็นเหมือนอย่างเราเนี่ยเยอะแล้วทุกคนก็บางคนก็ผ่านการผ่าตัดมาแล้วแล้วก็ให้ทำการรักษาแล้วแต่บางคนก็ยังไม่ได้
She said that before she going for surgery and getting chemotherapy, she was really worried about everything, you know, like the pain and the complications and everything. And it's very important for her to tell other people like how to be strong and how to have hope and how to be a victor, not a victim.
ยังมาเนี่ยก็คือไม่ได้คิดมาก็คือมาตรวจแล้วคิดอยู่เสมอว่าคนเราเมื่อถึงเวลาก็ต้องไปทุกคนจะช้าจะเร็วแต่ตอนนี้เรามีโอกาสทำอะไรก็ได้
I met my wife about 40 years ago. I take care of her. So because of that love, it would extend into the protection.
ถ้าเป็นไปได้เนี่ยก็คุยกันไว้กับในกลุ่มนะคะที่เขาเป็นเหมือนคุณป้าเนี่ยแต่เขาก็แข็งแรงบ้างไม่แข็งแรงบ้างก็อยากจะชวนกลุ่มนี้เข้าไปที่โรงพยาบาลกำแพงเพชร
ก็เหมือนถ้าเราไม่ได้มาตอนนั้นก็เหมือนเราไม่ได้รักตัวเองเราก็ไม่ได้ดูแลแล้วก็คิดว่ามันก็คงจะเป็นมากกว่านี้และอาจจะเกิดอันตรายกับเราได้
It's day 10 today. We've come through Singapore, Malaysia, and halfway, just about completed our ride through Thailand. I haven't been riding for the last 2 days. My mind seems to exaggerate what the dangers are. It might be that we're just doing too much riding. We've covered 3,000 kilometers in a week. Today the temperature went up as high as 40 to 41 degrees on a bike. I gave it a try this morning again, but only managed to keep up with them for about an hour before essentially getting frightened to death. This has never happened before. I've never had anxiety attacks on a bike. We'll have to see how that works out.
In China, we really got our share of real motorcycle riding. There are times when you ride the bike in Yunnan where you're cornering and the bike is on the road but you're over a cliff. If you brake, you fall, so you don't brake.
Just look at the scenery. You have water, you have stream river.
Yeah, you're so close to nature, it's just right there.
You'll be surrounded in these paddy fields with systems of irrigation that have been there for millennia.
Probably one of the most stunning sceneries you'll ever find.
In the first 2 weeks, we couldn't even get out of Yunnan, and that's not even the biggest county in China. It gives you an idea of the size of, just how big China is.
So our first meeting that we had was in Kunming. It was our first meeting with China on a scientific level. We realized that there was an interest from the hospital and the doctors at the hospital to collaborate just as much as we wanted to collaborate with them and to share experiences. They noticed that breast cancer is becoming increasingly common. They have a similar challenge in treating breast cancer, that the women are coming late. A lot of their women come from rural areas. They have a long way to go. Behind us, we're at 3,600 meters. We have a bit of a headache because it's pretty high altitude. But Philip is sort of de-thawing a little bit. We're only traveling through tiny villages, stunning view, and I think most importantly, the nicest bit of this was Cynthia Chow, who's our anthropologist. She met us.
It's not a surgical problem. A lot of the expert work was going to need collaboration with other people.
For a very long time, the surgeons were looking for anthropologists to look at some of the cultural constraints that Asian women face for breast cancer treatment. While the biker surgeons were doing their long ride, I was here in Copenhagen trying to assemble a team of researchers.
My mother experienced breast cancer last year, and I know it can be really hard, not only for the person who experiences it, but also from the people around.
My role in this project, being a linguist and also a Chinese in origin, is to serve as a research assistant. Being somebody who grew up in the area we visited, I thought I understood my people. Only on this trip did I discover that I didn't even know the people with whom I grew up.
I think if anything, it just shows that there needs to be more exchange of ideas. And this is what the long ride is about. It's not been easy talking to the women. Many of them have stories to tell which are really heart-rending. And I think we owe it to them to help get their stories out. We are only beginning. This is only the very start. There's still a long way to go.
The part that chilled me to the bone was when I realized that the rise in breast cancer incidents that we've experienced over the last 20 years in Singapore is repeated in practically every Chinese city we've seen. And with 5 million people in Singapore, most of the Chinese cities we've been to, they're considered small if there are less than 10 million people. And all of them have shown this rise in breast cancer incidents, this doubling over 20, 30 years. And if it's not on someone's agenda, it ought to be.
The idea of a sandstorm was completely new to us. We woke up, it was a little bit windy, and we figured that's not a big problem. But you couldn't quite see the sky. But being a bit optimistic, a wee bit naive, we figured, no problem.
It's just dirt.
It's just dirt. We'll ride anyway.
The first thing that struck me was that the mountains disappeared.
Yeah. It turned out that BBC reported this in the UK as the worst sandstorm in 10 years in this region.
Hello and welcome from Torfen in the middle of the desert. It's sandy.
From where we were in Ulufan-Durumuchi, you have to pass over a mountain.
We went from the desert with a sandstorm at Turupan.
And then it goes to mountain -3.
Yeah.
And then down the mountain, and you end up at 20 degrees plumb. And how do you dress for that?
Yeah. We're here at the border between China and Kazakhstan. It took us 6 hours to get through customs. And Kazakhstan is the size of Western Europe, with something like 16 million people. And I knew I was going to get emptiness. It was a completely different change from China. That first day in Kazakhstan, I'll probably never forget. It was clear skies. It was beautiful, bright skies. Time in a lot of these places seemed to have stood still. As we were coming out from the border, it's about 150 kilometers to Almaty. And we were hit by a very bad sandstorm. We had a film crew that came back and helped us from the Kazakh national television. And they came and helped us when we called them in the sandstorm.
Yeah. We figured out, okay, we have to get out of here, so we decided to turn the bikes around and head downwind.
10 to 15 kilometers in the dark with a sandstorm.
And just turning the bikes around with people holding onto the bikes, the wind blew the bikes over. We made it to that truck stop, and now Kazakhstan showed its pretty face.
Oh, that was wonderful.
And this lady, who she spoke only Russian, they let us sleep on the couch, so we stayed there overnight. And if you ever have trouble in foreign relationships, I know the recipe. It's called vodka.
What do you say in Kazakh?
Denzok.
Dizok.
To wish you good road.
Good journey.
Yeah, good journey, and come back to your country safe.
Salut.
Раньше рак молочной железы было редким заболеванием. К сожалению, в нашем времени оно стало какой-то обычной патологией.
My notion before seeing these countries is that you could alleviate a lot of the burden of the disease by just making healthcare free.
In Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, treatment is free. Even chemotherapy is free. But we still discovered that many women still either don't attend breast cancer screening or they come very late. So what we learned when we went through the stands was that even though healthcare is free, it doesn't answer the whole problem.
It's just a small part of the answer. Hi, so we are halfway up a mountain. We're at 1,450 feet in the middle of nowhere in Iran, outside of Gorgas. My bike has broken down, and that is extremely annoying. We've had mechanics in Samarkand look at it. They can't sort it out. We've shipped the bike on the yellow vehicle to Ashgabat with us. Mechanics there can't fix it either.
Somebody who's traveling through Iran will feel welcome almost everywhere he turns. That kind of hospitality that was completely unexpected, because I think Iran does get bad press, but the people we met were superbly hospitable.
Our Iranian driver, wonderful man.
I've never seen a GPS.
I've never seen a GPS.
Couldn't speak a word of English.
Not a word of English. So he's speaking Farsi, we're speaking English.
Biggie, actually.
We've spoken to some Iranian doctors and they have allowed our anthropology colleagues to go in and interview Iranian women.
Iran is a country, I think it's bigger than France and Germany together. About, I think, less than 80 million people live there. There aren't any support groups for cancer patients, for women. There's recently been a national healthcare reform that's only a few weeks old, and I think a project like this could be very, very exciting.
So we set up camp in Cappadocia. We woke up at 4 in the morning at a great sunrise and air balloons coming up at the horizon, which is a common phenomenon in this part.
Cappadocia.
Yeah.
The writing here is best in Asia, and I can say that with some authority because except for the last 500 kilometers, we have biked across the entire Asian landmass. We're going to hit the Bosphorus later today. The scenery is the biggest threat to life because it's so beautiful you take your eyes off the road. Today we crossed the Bosphorus.
We're going to enter Europe today.
We're going to enter Europe,
yeah,
today.
By the end of today, we are
in Europe.
I think we've done a little bit to put breast cancer on the agenda.
I think that they followed their itinerary to the letter, arriving on time for every single previously set up appointments and so forth. This kind of spirit and devotion to a sense of duty, I think it's admirable. I mean, I personally, to tell you truthfully, didn't quite believe that they would complete this journey. I thought that this was just incredibly complex.
Yeah, about half a year ago, when Philip was here last in Copenhagen, I told him, I'll only believe it when I see you here.
Some highlights of your journey, not only when the motorcycles break down, but also the journey, because it's been a lot.
Is this the first time that people ever think about Asian breast cancer? Probably not. But a lot of people not working with breast cancer don't realize how quickly the risk of breast cancer is changing, and how much of a burden it's becoming in front of their eyes. Do we need to have a more joint effort? Yes, we do.
When you first pull up to a gas station or a cafe for lunch on the long ride, the first thing people will hear is the bikes coming up. And very often we are in countries where bikes like this don't exist. Motorcycle, it acts as a kind of, it's almost like a magic carpet. It gives you entry into their world, and you tell them that it's breast cancer. Almost all the time you get people responding, oh, my wife, my mother, you know. And many times when they make their recollection, it's the first time they talk to anybody about it.
Many survivors were scared, but I personally am very proud that I am a survivor who can stand up and dance.
I'm a sport physician looking at exercise for patients with cancer. They call themselves candy girls.
One team, one goal, one spirit. We are.
And you know why we name ourselves candy girls? We started with cotton candy. Yeah, you know, it's pink and it's sweet and it stick to each other. So we start to perform in the year of 2011. As we goes on, they build up their confidence, and they build that courage.
I discovered the possibilities of improving and changing one's life through dance.
It is making us stronger, tougher. If you got cancer, it's not the end of the world.
In between treatments, in between my chemotherapy, I was still able to go to work. I continued cycling. I continued my passion, which is motorcycling.
I found that there are role models that they can do it. I said, why can't I?
When you meet a fellow breast cancer survivors, I can't describe, but you have that empathy with them. If you pedal in sync, the boat actually can move very fast.
I think the aim for all of us in this project is to be able to help women to actually get treatment, to go to the screenings, and maybe erase some of the taboos.
We want our women with breast cancer to live longer with a higher quality of life.
And I think it's about time women tell people about cancer. To have an empowered woman is by far the most important thing.
I remember when we first started conceptualizing this ride, after a while it stopped being a question of whether or not we could do it. It started being a question of whether or not we could not do it, because the problem is so urgent.
There's one team that we find it a bit hard to actually beat. That is the Singapore team. And if I had a dream, our dream was actually to beat them at least once.